So all drawing, painting, sculpture is basically broken down into three categories. You have representational artwork, which is literally a representation of whatever the artist is trying to make. So it's a sculpture of a girl that looks like a girl. Or in our first example here, we have Michelangelo's David. And obviously, he's trying for accuracy and trying to make it look as much like a real human as possible. Um, and then our next slide is Michelangelo's Pieta. So it's the Virgin Mary holding Jesus. And it's depicted with as much accuracy to the human form as possible. So these are examples of representational art. So to represent life, to represent nature, to represent an object. So the aim for representational art is accuracy. It's realistic. And then artists, by virtue of what they might do subconsciously or consciously, they begin to abstract art, which means to distort it in some way, exaggerate it, simplify it, make it more geometric than it is in real life. And when we look at this piece by Max Leva, I think it's from 1966, it's clearly figurative. We can tell that these are figures. Excuse, there's a trash truck outside. Sorry about that. These are clearly figures. They're obviously very intentionally human, but they're also very intentionally abstracted. And then our next piece here is Henry Moore's reclining figure. This is far more abstracted than Max Leva's piece with the figures. So this is just a hint at a human form, but it's not quite as obvious. It's starting to get further away from representation and far more closer to non-representational, but we still see the figure. This is solidly abstract. And then our next piece here, is Deborah Butterfield, and many of you have seen her work at the Portland Airport. So as you're flying out of the terminal, you can see there's a number of these Deborah Butterfield horses. And they're usually like these driftwood sculptures, and they're quite large. They are obviously a horse, but they also are very abstracted. They're starting to be distorted and simplified and exaggerated. And those are key words for abstraction. If you look at a piece of art and you're like, that is a very, extreme or distorted, then you're looking at a piece of abstract art. And then this next piece is a very famous abstract artist named Donald Judd. Often his work was paintings, but this sculptural piece is also pretty typical of his work in that he works almost always with these like cube-like structures and patterns. And so his is just very geometric. A lot of abstract work that you'll see will often look like color field patterns, lines, depictions of simple shapes. And then this is starting to work into non-representational work. So this piece by Donald Judd is the first example of completely non-representational. Whereas like Deborah Butterfield's horse, you could tell it was a horse, even though it was very abstracted. Donald Judd's is very much not representational of anything from the natural world. And then this last example here is Barbara Hepworth, and her work is also non-representational. She plays with a lot of sort of circular objects and lots of interesting line tension with these wires that she'll run through her sculptures. And her work is always non-representational. So I have this this Venn diagram I made for you guys. And you're probably asking yourself, why did my art teacher make such a poor Venn diagram? But anyway, it's what I had available to me. But if you look at this, you see on one side, you have representational art on the far left here. And then on the far right, you have non-representational art. And then abstract art kind of can lay over either section. So, for example, the representational art that is also abstraction would be like Max Leva's figures or Henry Moore's reclining figure. And then the abstract art that is non-representational would be like the last two examples we saw with Donald Judd's kind of square designs, and then Barbara Hepworth's sort of circular round sculpture. And then the ones that fit solidly in representational were Michelangelo's Pieta and Michelangelo's David. So these three concepts, representational, abstract, and non-representational. And these are all concepts that we are going to work with throughout this semester. And you are going to create at least one of each of these. And, some will speak to you more than others, but it's important for you to know the difference.